All right, so this is gonna be a quick look at a really interesting little fiddle that I've been working on and just finished up a little while ago. It has a longer backstory, so nothing too crazy, but it started because I wanted to learn to play the violin. And so I know how to make them, but I don't really know how to play them that much. And that's how banjo kind of started for me, is I wanted to learn to play a banjo, so I made a banjo. And I obviously fell down the banjo rabbit hole. But this was a little backwards. I learned to make a fiddle and then thought maybe I'd want to play a little bit. And so my mentor, Tommy Case, who trained me in making instruments in terms of violins, told me I should get some professional training for my first year at least so I could build good habits and not hurt myself. There's irony coming up here soon. Now, I studied under a great teacher here, Miss Grace Doty, and she is a instructor here at the Georgetown College campus in Georgetown, Kentucky. I took violin for her for 2 semesters, learned some really good skills and habits and posture and all these great things as to not hurt myself. At the end of my first year though, last May, I injured my shoulder, and I don't know how. It started having mobility issues, it started having some problems, but one of the funny ones was somewhere in the middle of that semester, I started getting a tremble when I would use a bow and I would start playing. I would start to hear it. I could hear it just like wiggling. And I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. She said, well, there's a lot of tension in you, and so I'm trying to relax. No matter what I did, I couldn't get it to go away. I could hear it really clearly. And my hand wouldn't shake, minorly, but it wouldn't really shake. And so I couldn't figure out what it was. And after going to the doctor about this mobility issue in my shoulder, I basically, if I lifted my arms, this one could go up really high and this one could not. The mobility issue is solved, but I still had, in terms of that direction, but I found out I had 2 frayed tendons in my shoulder and a partially torn labrum in there. I'm still going through recovery for this, and there are some odd things that are happening in my arms, but one of which is holding it up at posture for long periods of time, or this motion coming across my body specifically. I can feel it kind of come down through my shoulder. And so I started thinking about that, and I thought, man, you know what? I'm just going to play like an old timer. So instead of playing like a proper violin, I'm just going to put it on my chest or my rib and play like an old timer. That way my shoulder doesn't have to lift up, and it will change my range of motion, and that will help. I also have some weird mobility issues in terms of my hands. So I don't know if it's a muscle or tendon issue from woodworking, but I tell this story because my wife and I were eating a cookie, and we were hiding from our kids in the bathroom one day, and we were like snacking on a cookie while they weren't paying attention. That's what you do when you have teenagers. Anyways, I was eating a cookie, and she's like, put your hand up like a table, like, you know, to drop crumbs. And I went like this. She goes, not like this, like flat. And I'm sitting there going, I can't do that. And I started looking, and I can't hold my hand. I can hold my hand flat here, but as soon as it comes up, it starts leaning. And I don't have a lot of the supination kind of like rotation availability in my hands. And when I first started taking violin classes, I would hold this, and any time, and there was no tension in this hand in terms of my thumb or anything like that, I could feel it all the way down my forearm just from trying to turn my hand. And so I started doing a lot of stretches, and that helped, but I could never get that full range of motion. And so I thought, man, I wish I could actually have that fiddle kind of lean more like a banjo, and I could play it evenly without that stress in my arm. So all things considered, I thought, well, because of these, I'm just going to play like an old timer. But one problem. I'm 5'8". I'm not a super tall guy. Because of that, my limbs are not super long. And because of that, holding out on my rib here actually is almost a straight arm. Okay, so it's not a really conducive, easy situation. So I thought, what if I made a violin or a fiddle that was missing this portion of the instrument so that it could contour and conform to my chest or my ribs? So I built this. I call it a Kentucky Rib Fiddle. You notice obviously it is sloped out here, scalloped in. It's a little bit thicker than a standard fiddle, and it's a little bit splayed wider. It actually kind of like tapers out a little more than a fiddle. And what the reasoning was for that was to get the same amount of air volume inside of the case. So my hope was that it would sound just as loud and just as good. So now I can hold this one on my chest with a bent elbow, not a straight arm. It's a lot more comfortable. And I can play like this with my arm not being impeded. It's not comfortable for me down here yet. I don't play like that, but it is comfortable up here on my chest. It's also actually kind of comfortable up here on my chin because it lays down on here, and I can hold that corner, and it allows the angle of my hand that I was having trouble with to come forward like I liked. So I can play it like this, and that's pretty comfortable. I can play it up here, and it's pretty comfortable as well. Now, I will not hurt you guys by showing or playing for you all because I'm still very, very new to this. And yeah, but I'll show you some details up close of this. And then I have a student here, George Fields, who came in and graciously played this for a little bit, and he's a killer player. So he played this, and you can hear some real sound samples of what it sounds like. Now, humorously also, him and I tried to play together, and my buddy John Reister always told me I should play with more people, and I was like, no, I just like play by myself at my house, like it's not a big deal. And he gave me this, this kind of comes back to haunt me. He said, if you don't start playing with people, you're going to build in things that don't belong, and you'll realize it when you play with people. And I was like, I don't care. Well, that's showing up, so thanks, John. I should have listened to your advice, and I did not. So I had a laugh is every time I play Angel and the Baker, somewhere in there, in the A part, I have added a beat and a half or something. I don't know where it is. But I've built it up to where it sounds normal to me, but I can't find it very easily. And so it puts me off with every other person that plays that song. So George and I were sitting here being like, oh, just play Angel and the Baker. And man, it fell apart. And then we're like, well, we'll play a different song. So we started trying to find songs we both knew that we could play. So we played along with a little bit of something. And so anyhow, it was fun. You might hear it. I don't know if I'll put it in this or not. But we'll show you up close the Kentucky Rib Fiddle, and then you can hear George play on it for a bit. So it has a traditional maple back and maple ribs and a spruce top. All traditional kind of normal stuff because I didn't want the sound to change based off of the woods. So if I made this out of different woods and it sounded weird, I didn't want to blame it on the wood or anything else. So it's the same woods, just a different form. So we had kind of a control. One of the hardest parts was sculpting this back rib section because normally you'd make the ribs first and then tailor the top and back to that. With this scenario, I couldn't do that. I actually had to make half the ribs, make the top and the back, and then fit that piece in there. So I had to make a nice little short tail piece as well, right? So it still holds all the strings. It is a standard length. It is a normal violin. That's normally where the tailpiece fits. It just normally goes to here, right? So that's about that. It's got normal everything. So it's just a normal violin. It's just got a funky shape. But we'll hear George play it, and you can hear him do a good job.